I get asked all the time, so what happens when you're selling through probate? And today I'm going to explain the entire process. Hi, I'm Cruz. I'm a certified probate and trust specialist, and I work with families who are going through the probate process and need help selling real estate through probate. So normally what happens when I meet with someone who's selling a property through probate, as a real estate professional, I have to make sure that the person who is selling the property is authorized to do so. That means that the person has to have certain documents by the court, has to have gone through the probate process and the petition process to become the executor or the administrator. The document that someone needs is called the letters of administration. And that person who has the letters from the court will be able to proceed in selling and listing the property. So usually what happens is we would come together, we meet, and we talk about the goals, when we're going to list the property, how we're going to list it, if it's going to be sold as is. A lot of the times properties that are being sold through probate need work, so they are sold as is. If we do make any repairs or remodeling, we talk about that process as well. After we sign the listing agreement, some of the things that we discuss is the disclosure packet. In this disclosure packet, the seller has to fill out certain documents to ensure that the buyer understands this is going to be a probate sale. Normally when we work together, I also look at the probate referee's inventory and appraisal. The inventory and appraisal is a document that's provided by the probate referee, who's a court-appointed third party who will appraise the property value. Our goal is to be at least within 90% of that, or of course to sell it for even more. But ideally, when we have the inventory and appraisal, we're able to understand how much the property is worth according to the referee and according to the court. So that's really important, and that's one of the steps that we look at before listing a property. If for any reason we don't meet the court's expectations within pricing points, so for example, if the property is appraised by the court referee at $1 million and all of the offers that we've received at the end are at the $700,000, we could still move on with the sale, but we have to show the court, or we have to make sure that we've done our due diligence to sell the property for the most money possible. So what I like to do is make sure that I keep track of any record that shows my marketing campaigns, that shows how many open houses I hosted, that shows all of the strategies that I use to make sure we get the most money. Ultimately, as the personal representative of the estate, your job is to make the most money for the estate, which is also my job. So we have to make sure that we track and keep record of all the work that we did to make sure that you sold the house for the most money you could. So something else that we will have to do when we're listing and selling a property through probate is connect with the probate attorney. And that will be my job. So usually what happens is once you sign the listing agreement as the seller, once you have the court authorized letters, we send that listing agreement to the attorney, and that's where I do a formal introduction. In this formal introduction, I explain the process, when I think we'll be on the market, and that will notify the attorney that we're making progress towards selling the house. And most likely, he's also going to post this on the court's website, because all of these are public documents. So he might do a notice of proposed action or something on his behalf. So it's very important that I introduce myself to your attorney. So then the next thing we'll do is we're going to prepare the home for putting it on the market. Normally, when you're selling a property through probate, it's important to get the most money. So we rarely do sales that are off market. Although those are sometimes do take place, it's very important to put on the MLS if you do want to get the most attention and get the most money. So some of the things that we will discuss when we're doing that is talking about any potential work that the home might need, if that's something that you want to accomplish, whether it's remodeling or just small repairs, creating a plan for inspections. Normally here in California, especially the Bay Area, we do have inspections for the property if it's going to be sold as is, especially, and if you did not live in the home, right? So you want a third party to come and provide an inspection, and that property inspection will be done before we put on the market, along with the termite inspection. Then we can also talk about the marketing campaign, which includes sending out mailers or maybe door knocking to the neighborhood, or calling potential buyers, or reaching out to people. We also talk about staging the property. If it's a property that needs to be staged, we also talk about that. Estate sales, many times when someone has passed away, we do end up with a lot of things in the property. So we could hire a third party to do an estate sale. Sometimes family members actually do it themselves, so they don't pay someone else to do that. Maybe having a biohazard team. I have had situations in which someone died in the property and there's other things that we have to dispose of in order to make sure that people are able to come in safely in the property. So we could also work on that. Some of the areas are also donations. Many times the properties that I work with have a lot of things inside, so we have to donate or dispose of and hire a hauling team that can help us with that. And finally, some of the areas that we can have a conversation or some of the things that we can consider are if you have any tenants. Many times in the probate sales that I work on, there are tenants or family members. Unfortunately, sometimes I deal with situations where they don't want to leave or they don't want to move out because they don't have anywhere to go. And we also work on that. So we want to make sure that anyone that's living in the property is not unhoused, that everyone that lives there has a place to go. So we've done with tenants, even Airbnbs, temporarily paid for hotels or found housing for them. So it's very important that we talk about those goals prior to putting the property on the market. So now that we've done all the work that we had to prepare the property for the market, now we list it on the MLS. And that's a multiple listing service. Here in California, once we post it on that MLS, it's public. So anyone in the area or even outside of the state can see that it's being sold. Ideally, we want to put it on the MLS because we want the most visibility. So we put it on the MLS and then we have an offer deadline. That's at least how I usually do that. I normally like to have an offer deadline so buyers understand that there is an important date, a due date. So normally what happens when they do submit their offer is I come to you as the seller and you're able to review all of the offers and make an informed decision based off the offers that I've reviewed and the conversations that I've had with agents. So you as the seller are able to decide which offer you want to proceed. Hopefully you have multiple offers. That's an ideal situation. We always look at the offer price and we also look at the terms. There have been situations where people really look at the offers and get really excited over the price, but maybe the terms don't really make sense for your particular situation. For example, if you're selling a property that's being sold as is because it needs work, maybe it has a water leak. And if you have a buyer who's submitting an offer to you with an inspection contingency or a contingency where you're going to have to take care of the water leak, it's probably not beneficial to you. So it's really important that you look at the offers. So not just the offer price, but also the terms, because those do matter. Also, we want to make sure that the deposit's done, at least for me, within 1 day to make sure that the buyer is really committed to purchasing our property. Okay, so we prepared the property, we have the property on the market, you've selected your offer. Finally, once you select the offer, I would send it over to your attorney if you do have one. And that's for them to go over the offer as well and to give the court notice. Once you've selected the offer, we start following, whatever terms are on the offer. However, it's really important to get your attorney involved to make sure that they understand when you're closing. So whenever the close of escrow date is. And we also connect the attorney with the title company. So they'll start having a conversation about anything that is related to the probate case. This is where the attorney comes in. So normally when we start listing the property, we inform the attorney, we do our work, list the property, sell the property, and then we get the attorney involved at the end as well. Once we finalize, hopefully everything goes very smooth. That's for your agent and for myself to make sure that everything goes very smooth. And then once we close the property, we close escrow. The funds are deposited in the estate account. So they're not provided to you as the seller or to anyone else. They're actually placed in an estate account and they're usually not touched. The funds are not touched until the final distribution in the probate case has concluded. And our job is to make sure that those funds are placed in that account safely, and your title company, my title company, will reach out to you as the seller and work together to make sure that's done. Once everything is finalized, we send your attorney a closing packet, which includes all of the things that were paid at close of escrow, any closing cost, commission to your agent, any past due taxes or anything like that is provided to your attorney as well, so he's well informed. So basically, we talked about the beginning and the end of selling a property through probate. And your job as the administrator or executor is to make sure that, again, you make the most money for the estate and that everything is running smoothly. If you hire someone who's a professional, who knows what they're doing in probate real estate, you should have a smooth experience. There are certain things that come up that we can't control, but normally your agent will be able to work through them and make sure that everything is successful towards the end. So for me, as a certified probate and trust specialist, the most important thing is that the seller and I understand what's going on, that we're communicating, and that we are making sure that everything is done properly the first time, because a lot of these things are public and anyone can go to the courthouse and see what's going on with the case. So we want to make sure that we're in alignment with the court, that we're communicating with the attorney, and that we are setting clear expectations for everyone. So if you need any assistance with selling a property through probate, or if you have a trust and you need help with selling a property, feel free to reach out and my information will be listed at the bottom.